So let's jump into some details about the show. What resonates with you the most, Raul, after watching the show?
Well, beside all of the things that I mentioned already, I feel that every character has an opportunity to become something or someone better. They all have that opportunity, and some of the characters actually do learn through this process. So Hannah's death is not in vain. There's plenty of things that a lot of the characters can take away from it and kind of learn from it and become better people after it. Even though it's a tragedy, it shouldn't be something that just occurred and then you move on. So that's one thing that to me resonates, that the characters learn from it and actually become better people after. Not all of them, but a good core of them.
And that's what I was going to say, is what resonated with me was there was too many of the characters, rather than trying to grasp how they could become better from the situation, were trying their hardest to either sweep it under the rug or not address it at all, or commit worse things happening to try to cover up what they may have contributed to happen to Hannah. And it really kind of made me stop and think in my life, like, with my relationships with people, like, how am I addressing people that maybe are not my favorite people? How could I be handling situations like that better? And it got me thinking personally, not even in a high school setting, but just in an everyday life setting of how can I handle those situations better.
Yeah, and then I kind of liked how each character, like, this is like you said earlier, like, everybody was kind of different. Everybody had their own imperfection about him. Even though he was like the super rich kid, he had his little problem. Even though you're like the not so popular kid, you had your little thing. And during the whole series, they were kind of battling that and battling the whole thing with Hannah. Yeah. So they're trying to solve their problem before they solve that problem. But even though if they would have solved that problem first, it would have helped them out with the problems they already were having. And it kind of helped, like, dig up, like, like stuff that they could have done before, them as people.
The character you're referring to is Bryce, correct?
Bryce, yeah.
Bryce in particular. So one thing that I do want to mention is also that it made me stop and think of when this topic is brought up, the topic of bullying, the topic of relationships, friendships, and dynamics in high school and in school and stuff. If you ask most people, their instinct is going to be to think about the things that have been done to them. And so most of us can see ourselves reflected immediately in the victim's perspective, but rarely do we first start off thinking of, whoa, what are the negative things that I've done? Or have there been any microaggressions that I've committed along the years that I should have stopped at some point? So this show made me think of that. Like, okay, I went through my natural instinct. Like, I thought about all of the things that I felt were wrongdoings towards me. But after that, I started to reflect on, I shouldn't have done this, or I shouldn't have said that to this person at this particular moment, or I should have been more available to this other person who needed it at the time. So I think there's plenty of food for thought in the show, which is great. It makes it for great dramatic television, and also if you can talk about it like we're talking about it now in our real lives, then it obviously makes an impact with most people who are watching. Now, the other side of that, we talked about all of the positive things and all the things we liked about the show. I think maybe we should focus on the characters that resonated with us in a negative light. So the characters that we disliked, and to their core as a character, we almost hated, you could even say. So Byron, do you want to tell us what character or characters you really disliked and why?
I think I had two. I think Bryce, I don't want to spoil it too much, but he was like the kind of...
He's just a terrible person.
He's a monster.
Yeah, he's a monster. He plays the big man on campus, captain of whatever team that he's on and stuff like that. A rich kid and everything like that, able to do whatever he wants, able to influence his friends in every way because he's a rich kid. He always has parties at his house and everything like that. And he's like the main dude doing the worst stuff, but he uses his friends to help shield him from any kind of repercussions that may occur. And I don't want to spoil anything, but he's hate him. Hate him so much. And then I think my second person is Courtney. I think she may be up there with Bryce because it's people in the world that do that now. Hype people up. They always worry about how people describe how they are, pretty much.
Their perception of them.
Their perception. They just care about how they look in front of everybody else. Even though the problem may not be as big if you just go ahead and just say it. you might not feel as bad as you think you were for holding it in. Because Courtney, her parents are both gay, and she thinks she's gay because she does a little thing later on, but she don't want to let everybody know. They want everybody to think that she's this perfect girl,
Yeah.
So she's doing whatever she can in her power to keep that, even though it's pretty much tarnishing a memory of somebody that passed away.
Yeah, it almost seems like if she would have been a little bit more forthcoming with her own feelings about herself, a lot of issues could have been avoided.
Yeah.
But the fact that she was hiding stuff
Yeah.
makes her that kind of despicable character where, she'll do anything to cover it up.
Yeah, and she was like that to the bitter end too.
Yeah.
And since I have the same two characters, I'll jump in. Bryce, for obvious reasons.
Yes.
I mean, just a terrible person. By the end of the show, you will hate him just as much as all of us do. And Courtney, my biggest issue with Courtney is every time she had an opportunity to make something better, she instead dug the hole deeper and made it worse.
Yeah.
And
she knew it too, but she didn't care. That's the thing. She knew what she was doing. She did not care.
Yeah.
And Hannah, the main character, even confronts her about that exact thing and about how she just needed a friend, and instead she went behind her back and just made things so much worse. And so those two characters are despicable, and I'm sure there's real life versions of them in the world, and
Plenty.
So how about you, Earl?
Well, I agree with you guys, but I'm going to go in another direction. Marcus, who is very similar to Courtney in what he does. He'll do anything to keep that perfect picture and the perfect perspective everyone else has in their opinion.
He was more like the politician, like he'll be like a future politician.
Yeah.
He wants to keep that
Yeah.
that real positive high horse type of deal.
Yeah. And someone like that, they'll be really good at politics.
Yeah.
They'll be really successful, but behind that mask, there'll be a whole lot of darkness, which is kind of what Marcus is about. It's like the male version of Courtney with different scenarios and different, things in his life, but still a pretty bad character. And Monty is another character that I really disliked. Monty, or Montgomery, he's just an asshole, And there's always one or a few of those in every school and in every story, and that guy did a really good job about it. It almost seemed like, that character, like he was there just to piss everybody off.
Yeah, and there was like the opposite too. He had Jeff, which is pretty much he was still the jock, still the real good jock, but he was actually nice about it. He was like, he was actually helped, Clay and his girl problem and stuff like that. And then something happens to him later on and stuff like that. But he's a really good character as well.
Yeah, something had to happen to Jeff, otherwise he might have had like a say in what was going on. He might have maybe prevented some stuff because that's the kind of guy or the kind of character that he was.
Yeah.
Step in and help someone in need, that's the kind of people and character we need in the world, period.
Yeah, I think he was the only character that was like that actually stepped in and gave proper guidance and proper counsel, because pretty much he counseled Clay in trying to get the girl part, because Clay was trying to get after after Hannah, and then once that went away, that kind of just cut the tie between Clay. And Hannah. Yeah. So if he was still around, that connection would have still been together.
I think there was other factors that kind of
it was so many factors.
I mean,
there was 13 reasons
when he finally goes to make his move and then it doesn't end well.
Yeah, but
I think that played a bigger part.
Yeah, but if he was thrown out, Jeff probably would have caught him. Hey, what's going on? Oh no, this he probably would have talked him back into talking to her again or giving.
Jeff just was that kind of a motivator, I think, and that kind of friend that we all need. Mm-hmm. Right, where when you're down on yourself and you're not really feeling confident or whatever, he was that helping hand or that extra push that Clay kind of needed. So in the absence of Jeff, Clay was left to his own devices, and being the character that he is, the way that we talked about him, that classic, kind of loner kind of kid, not very confident, he needed that other dimension to him, which Jeff kind of gave to him.
Mm-hmm. All right, so to recap, if what we've been talking about sounds interesting to you, this would be a great series for you to watch. It does really address a lot of great issues.
And they're issues that you might not be going through right now if you're like an adult, but if you're a parent, then it's definitely good to watch so that you know what your kids are going through and why they're not talking to you about them. And then also, if you did go through something like that, then you can kind of remember what your experiences were back when you were in high school or middle school or whatever it was.
Yeah, so at the end, you should watch it anyway. No matter which way you think, it just gives you a better perspective on different points of people's lives, different ideas and different mentalities that people go through. That's the main thing I was trying to say. If you have a better perspective of the way people think, you're more adaptable to talk to different people. Because I think a lot of people lack that. I think this in general to talk to somebody and then look at somebody else and talk to them in a completely different way. Because some people get offended for different things. So if you're more adaptable in that sense, you're able to cover you're able to cover a lot of stuff. A lot of problems. You're able to solve a lot of problems instead of just being this one-dimensional.
Yeah. And one last thing that I do want to mention is in life we don't get to meet as many people as the characters that we can meet through film and through TV shows and things like that. And all of these characters are a reflection of real life. Art imitates life and life imitates art. So back to what Byron had said, in getting to know these characters and what motivates them and what moves them, we can kind of get a better perspective into how to deal with real life situations with real life human beings.
And if you are in a situation where you see someone that you think is really down or needs a friend, take the time to ask them what they're going through and take some initiative and don't take the perspective that you don't want to get involved, because that might be exactly what they need in that moment.
Yeah, just talk to them. That's all it is. It just takes this little small talk here and there to change somebody's perspective of whatever they're going through.
Be their Jeff, be their Tony.
Yeah.
All right.
And we know this has been a little different take on an episode from us. You probably didn't hear me giggle once during this episode, and that's very unusual. Yeah, and we like to take on some serious topics as well, and we hope you've enjoyed what you've seen today.
So thank you again for tuning in to this week's 3 Men in a Movie / TV episode. Tune in next week.